Ahead tonight, the opposition walks out of the House of Assembly, but bills still pass.
Plus, the Prime Minister weighs in on dissension in government ranks.
And speedy footwork pays off. Antoine Richardson in pinstripes. We've got the highlights. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Breaking news off the top tonight, the gaming bill and other bills are passed in the House of Assembly as the opposition walks out.
Well, the government also announces that the gender equality referendum has been pushed back. Now, just after the passing of the gaming bill in the House and just as the vote was called to amend the Financial Transaction Reporting Act, opposition members got up and left the chamber. The legislation was nonetheless amended. After that, Leader of Government Business, the Honorable Dr. Bernard Nottage, told members that there are many concerns and misconceptions persist.
These misconceptions, concerns, and anxieties have been exacerbated in many instances by the feeling that insufficient time is being given to develop a clear and thorough understanding of the bills and of what they are intended to achieve. Mindful of these concerns and of the Constitutional Commission's recommendation, the government has agreed that the date previously announced for the referendum, namely November 6, 2014, should be and is hereby vacated. The new date for the holding of a constitutional referendum in 2015 will be announced by the government in due course.
Well, with the passage of the gaming bill, regulating the gaming industry is one step closer to reality.
Now today, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie explained why government reverted from its initial position following the no vote from the gambling referendum. Carla Palmer has that story.
Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie says it was his initial intent to honor the results of the 2013 gambling referendum, but changes had to be made.
The results of the referendum came out and I said we will honor it. I then ordered the web shops closed and they appealed it. They injuncted it. It was then, Mr. Speaker, that I met with the governor. It's then that I spoke to the governor. It's then that I spoke to the Royal Bank of Canada. Mr. Speaker, the conversations are continuing. Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, you see in today's press where the governor of the central bank says she is studying the regulations and the law. So should she. Because people seem not to understand the power of that position she occupies. You only need to read the Central Bank Act to see, Mr. Speaker, if the governor whispers for you that something is irregular, then you had better pay attention to it.
Once the decision was made to regularize the gaming industry, Prime Minister Christie says he consulted the religious sector.
And my consultations were deep and strong. I remember the lady minister, who is an executive of the Christian Council, Baptist minister, asking me what I think I have to do to change the position of the referendum, meaning any actions I would like to take. And I told her that I was searching for a new moral authority. My words. A new moral authority. That's what I was searching for, I told her. Because I had ministers of religion who had taken positions, Mr. Speaker, courageously so, before the referendum, during the referendum, after the referendum, that differs to the position some of their colleagues now take. I told them what my fears were and invited them, if they wished, to consult people like the governor of the central bank.
Prime Minister Christie says he knows what his duties are, and he says what he has done has been in the best interest of the country. I'm Carla Palmer for ZNS Network News.
Well, it has been stated already that the gaming industry has and continues to be a difficult one for police. Member of Parliament for Baines and Grantstown, the Honourable Dr. Bernard Knowledge, says this makes it even more important for government to take action and regularize the gaming industry. He says the taxes used by government will be to the benefit of residents.
The referendum held on January 28, 2013, the votes cast were as follows. Do you support the regulation and taxation of web shop gaming? Yes or no? In Baintown, yes was 1,170 and no was 669.
You put Anderson there.
And you will rest that?
Man, come on now. Now you can be so selective in your...
Now what am I supposed to do? Huh? Okay. It said, do you support the establishment of a national lottery? Yes, 899. No, 682. What is the member for Bain and Grantstown to do?
Well, Angaston MP, the Honourable Glenys Hannah Martin, says she supports the gaming bill. She says the fact that the industry continues to multiply makes the case for reform and regulation even more compelling. Hannah Martin says the government's objective in bringing this piece of legislation is to control and regulate the sector.
It must be managed, and there must be regulatory oversight, and there must be accountability. Today, the industry is growing like topsy, appearing in residential communities. The member for Long Island said next to churches throughout our islands. Serious questions have been raised about an apparent thriving informal economy, which involves, from what we know, enormous sums of cash flowing through the economy with little or no scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, this must be a matter of grave concern. Mr. Speaker, regardless of my personal views on gambling in general or in particular, from the point of view of our social and economic health, we must address this issue.
Now, Marathon MP, the Honourable Jerome Fitzgerald, says he doesn't know a religious leader who can point to a scripture and show where gambling is morally wrong.
He is of the view that people have a right to choose.
There are some people who will and do gamble in excess, Mr. Speaker. And there are some people who, because of their gambling addiction, fail to meet their responsibilities, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the same could be said of alcohol, Mr. Speaker. The same could be said of those persons who do not eat in moderation, Mr. Speaker, who may be guilty of gluttony, so to speak. The same may be said, Mr. Speaker, of those persons who wear clothing that may be revealing and encourage others to lust at them, Mr. Speaker. But is that a reason not to gamble?
Still on news from Parliament, Prime Minister Christie took a minute to address the recent remarks by wayward members on his side following the recent debates on the gender equality and gaming bills. In particular, he addressed Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins.
I'm personally disappointed in the member for Fort Charlotte because he knows the confidence I have in him. He knows the confidence I have in his ability. His mother knows the confidence I have in his ability. He knows the extent to which I personally am responsible for his nomination. He knows that. I don't take away from him his right to speak. I don't want to. It's not my style. But just allow me, Mr. Speaker, to be who I am.
Well, Fort Charlotte MP Andre Rollins was the only one on the government side that voted against the bill today. And ahead of today's vote, Bambutan MP Renwood Wells told ZNS News that he too couldn't support the bill in its present state and would excuse himself from Parliament when it was time to vote.
Now, meantime, Gaming Minister Obi Welshcombe still doesn't see why there is concern among those on his side when the information, in his view, was clear.
I believe in the full economic rights of Bahamians, which means that Bahamians ought to have the right to be able to own the gaming industry. To me, it's a matter of empowerment for the Bahamian people, economic empowerment. The second part of that is that Bahamians should also have the individual right to go anywhere and to access the services offered by anyone in this country, any business, at any point in time. That is my fundamental view. And so, as a result of that, we have decided that we're going to economically empower the Bahamian people and make provisions in future to allow Bahamians access or residents access to the casinos. I believe that we ought to be able to do both of those now if we're going to address the gaming industry at all.
The discriminatory argument is, in my view, a very narrow argument because we're making steps to get to the next stage and we're doing things in a general way. One time ago, it would not be there for a minister through the cabinet to the government to have discretion to even consider it. It's now there. We're in our development. We're in phases of our development. Even in the great United States of America, things are done in phases, and every country in the world is done in phases.
And up next, an official move to fix a slippery situation.
And later on in sports, Antoine Richardson with a first hit will explain. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Lux Men's Warehouse.